Hello there, Riderflex Nation. Steve Urban here with more career advice and job interviewing tips for you. And as a quick reminder, if you enjoy our podcast, please remember to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes. And on today's podcast, 9 things to do when considering a job relocation. You know, you got that job offer and they want you to move from Boston to Dallas, Texas, or they want you to move from Los Angeles to Kansas City, Missouri. I myself have relocated many times in my career, and I've made job offers to candidates that had to relocate. So I have lots of experience on this topic, and I want to share my thoughts with you. And here are 9 things to consider, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but these are my favorite 9 when considering a job relocation. Number 1, make damn sure the person you live with, okay, your spouse, your partner, make sure they are committed to the move ahead of time. Don't waste a lot of time going on job interviews or talking to recruiters or employers where you know you're going to have to move unless you've already visited this topic or talked about it with your partner and you guys have signed up and held hands and said, yes, we'll move. So that's number 1. Number 2, if it's not at least a 20 to 25% increase in compensation package, I wouldn't move. Okay. I just would not relocate my entire family unless it was a pretty big pay jump. Okay. Assuming you can find something else where you live that at least matches your current pay or maybe even slightly under. I just wouldn't uproot my entire family unless it was a pretty good increase in overall compensation. Number 3. If you have kids in school that are sophomores or older, let's say you have a sophomore or a junior or senior in high school, I would not move. I would not take those kids out of school. It's just not worth it. You'll regret it years later. I've seen people regret it. It's just not worth it. Just stick it out for another year or 2 if you have to. Go down to Home Depot and get that job, okay, if you need to, for another year. Wait till your kids finish high school. Then you can move around once they've left for college or whatever. Number 4, of course, check out the school systems if you are going to move, right? Make sure the town you're going to move to has the school systems that you want, right? Number 5, if there are grandparents involved, consider it, right? Depending on how close your family is. You might be in one of these families where, you know, all your cousins and your siblings and everybody lives close and there's constantly gatherings over at the grandparents' house. If that's a big deal for your family, remember, you're going to be robbing your kids of that experience if you transfer them across the country. That should be taken into major consideration. Number 6. Make darn sure you've done your homework on the cost of the move and you're negotiating that with the person offering you the job, or you've saved up enough money to truly handle the expenses. A move across the country these days, depending on, you know, what your situation is probably $20,000 minimum and could be a heck of a lot more in some cases. So just make darn sure you've planned for that major expense and that move across the country. Number 7. Make sure you've studied the cost of living difference on the 2 cities, right? Based on where you live now and where you're moving to. Here's a perfect example. If you're trying to move from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma to San Francisco, California, you better make damn sure you've done your homework and the cost of living, because I can promise you it's going to be a shock to your system. And in fact, it's probably going to be even worse than anything you can pull up online. And by the way, there's all kinds of tools online, cost of living calculators that you can Google and find, and please use those tools. Make sure you're ready for the cost of living difference. Number 8, if it's a major shift in the region of the country or the cultures are different or something like that, like if it's a big time shift for you, I think that's really something to consider, especially if you've never been there or if you've never lived there, right? Here's a perfect example. If you're a Northeast guy that that you've lived, let's say, in Boston or New York your entire life, and somebody's trying to relocate you to Chickasha, Oklahoma, which happens to be my hometown where I went to high school. This is Mars versus Earth, okay? These are two totally different places. It's going to be a gigantic shock to your system. So do yourself a favor. If you're changing regions of the country, major shifts, right? Maybe you're going from, let's say, Philadelphia to Austin, Texas, or whatever. I mean, these are big time changes. You need to make darn sure you've visited there, you've studied the culture there. Hopefully you know somebody there. Do your homework before you change, before you make a major shift like that. By the way, that ties into a true story for my wife and I. My wife is a small town Texas girl, and I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and we were transferred to Connecticut one year. And by the way, nothing against Connecticut. Connecticut's a great state, and there's a lot of awesome people there. But I'll just tell you right now, we didn't fit in, okay? And it was a major shock to our system. And my wife hated it the whole time. So just make darn sure you've done your homework there. And the last point is this. Once you make a commitment to the employer and the recruiter and you say, yes, I'll take the job, you sign the written offer letter and you commit to the move, you need to follow through, right? Don't change your mind later. Don't do that to the employer. Don't do that to the recruiter. It's going to hurt your reputation. And there are my 9 tips on considering a job relocation and your Riderflex tip of the day. We truly hope you find our material helpful and entertaining. And while our podcast can be heard across most platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud, you can become a supporter of this podcast by visiting our show on the platform Anchor FM. That's anchor.fm/Riderflex. You can also send us your questions or suggested topics for future episodes to the email address podcast@riderflex.com or drop us a voicemail at 888-964-5876 extension 710. Visit riderflex.com to learn more about us. Thanks so much for listening, folks, and have a great day.